Is not saying, excuse me, not saying his message is not for the Gentiles or for the Samaritans, because we know it is. I mean, we looked at that last week. Jesus is the one who said, go into all the world. Jesus is the one who tells his apostles in Acts chapter 1, Jerusalem, Samaria, then to the end of the world. So we know he's not saying not those Gentiles or Samaritans. He's saying not now, not yet, not on this particular sending out. What's striking about this to me is Jesus' decisiveness. You notice Jesus doesn't go, guys, okay, here's an idea I have for you. What do you think about going to the lost sheep? Any suggestions on it? There? None of that. Jesus doesn't say, would you guys be okay doing that? Would you mind? He says, as you go. In other words, you're going. You're going out now and you have work to do. Here's what that work is. He tells them who to go to specifically. This is kind of like maybe when your kids were younger, they're like, I don't want to go to church. And you tell them, okay, it's time to go get ready for church. And they say, I don't want to go. What's a proper parent response? What? Did I ask you if you wanted to go? My kids will tell you that was probably my response. It wasn't usually church. It was like, hey, let's go to this. I don't want to go. I didn't ask if you wanted to go. I said, go get ready. That's, parenting 101, I think. But that's what Jesus said. He's not saying, what do you guys think about this? He says, go. As you go to the lost sheep of Israel. So when we think about the comparison for us, we know the new Israel is the church. We make all those connections. Jesus is saying, go to those who should be in the right relationship with me, should be in the right relationship with God to begin with. He said, we've got to do some restoration. We've got to go get those people who should be here in the first place. Those people who have turned their backs on God. And the first step, he tells them, is first step, you just got to go. Look over to Luke chapter 15. Keep your finger there, or keep something there in Matthew chapter 10. But look over to Luke chapter 15. These three great parables in Luke chapter 15, the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the prodigal son. In chapter 15, verse 4, the lost sheep, verse 4 says, what man among you who has 100 sheep and loses one of them does not open the gate and wait for it to come back? Anybody's read that way? Modern English translate? No, none of them say that. Has 100 sheep and loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open field and go after the lost one until he finds it. Verse 8, or what woman has 10 silver coins and loses one, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, search carefully until she finds it. What we see in these parables is it takes effort. For us to go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, those missing from the family, we got to go. We have to go to them. I had a man who was a former elder in a congregation that I was in tell me one time, they know when the doors are open. And I was like, yeah, okay, so what else do they know? My impression is there's something else that they know about us based on what you just said, which isn't a positive. What we see is the guy with the lost sheep left the 99 who were safe and said, I got to go find the one. The one with the lost coin, she gets down on her hands and knees, digs around, cleans through the dust and the dirt, and is trying to find the one that's missing. We have to make some effort. We have to get down in the dust and the discomfort sometimes. And I'll tell you this too. This is one of those lessons, I'll be quite honest, working on it earlier in the week, I was like, I don't want to do this one. Because this one, I feel like this is to me, and you guys just happen to be here. Because this is one of those things, you got to get out of this building. You got to get out of the comfortable place, the place where you've got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, it isn't a bad thing, but sometimes we have so much going on that is good spiritual activity that we forget that there's some people missing. Yikes. Nobody likes to think about it. I'm like I said, and I'm talking to me, the one who plans a lot of our spiritual activities that you see on our calendar. You know, between Richard and Jared and I, sometimes we sit down and look at the calendar and just go, man, when's a break? But I mean, and it is not a bad thing that we're busy, but we just can't get so busy that our focus is always on the safe, well-fed 99. We have to remember that there are those out there who we look around and go, hey, I haven't seen. And we have to remember that we have to go get those people. It's not like we're intentionally ignoring them. We just have to be attentive. We have to be conscientious about it. We need to remind even those who know it that the kingdom of heaven is near. As like I said, we don't have to go start with what is baptism with those people. We don't have to go start with what the church is. We have to start with, hey, what is it? What happened? Which makes it maybe even harder because you don't start with the textbook. I mean, you don't start with the step 1, step 2, you have to start with, what are you feeling? What's on your mind? What happened? What's the situation? And that's the challenge for us. We have to be attentive. Not everything, not every activity, every event, everything we have to do is designed to be outreach, right? And we understand that. So we have to remember, we have to be the ones who look around and go, hey, where is this person? Where's this family? Why are they? We have to be aware. Okay, so let's pull out another principle here. Look at verse 8. This is the one I was talking about. This doesn't apply to us specifically, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Back in Matthew chapter 10. Verse 8, this is, again, here's what Jesus tells them. Verse 7, as you go, proclaim, the kingdom of heaven has come near. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those with leprosy, drive out demons. Freely you received, freely give. Okay, like I said, that is not to us, right? I mean, none of us are told, we're not given those commands to go heal and raise the dead. We get that. But what we do have to see from that is the principle of meeting people's needs. Freely you have been given, Jesus said. We can sure take that sentence. Freely you have been given, freely you need to give. We have been incredibly blessed. We need to be conscious of people's physical needs. Now, Jesus tells them that this going is more than just preaching. You have to go help people where they need help. You have to go deal with people in wherever they are. He's already given them the authority. In verse 1, he said, I'm giving this to you. But now he says, go do it. Just go have at it. We need to, it's hard to convince people to come back to the church when their perception is church did nothing for me. Now, maybe that's an immaturity sometimes, and I don't mean that to be harsh. I just think that's true. Because there's also the question that for me personally, it's hard for me to not ask, okay, what have you done for the church? But we have to meet people where they are. Church didn't do anything for me. When it's hard to tell people they need to come back when they feel like there's no the church doesn't mean anything in their lives anyway. Again, this is from this. We know the expression. We've heard it. Most of us have probably heard it for years. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's a cliche. You know why cliches become cliches? Because they're true. That's like stereotypes. Stereotypes become stereotypes because they're true. This is, I mean, that's such a true statement. It has become kind of a kitschy, cliche statement, but it's so true. And we have to be conscious of that. In Acts 2, chapter 40, or Acts chapter 2, verse 45, we see the early church selling their property. Now, we've talked about that a lot of times in many different places. You've heard that. Is that a command for us? I don't think specifically, no. But man, there's a principle there. Why were they selling their property? Huh? To take care of the people who needed help. Now, at that point, the church doesn't have a bank account yet. I mean, there's not a slush fund that they can go draw from. It's, hey, we got to help the Smiths, and we got to help the Johnsons, and we got to help these people. So we got to do something to help the people. They understood, and they were a great example of showing that when Jesus says, go and teach all these things that I've taught you, that part of that sometimes means doing whatever you have to do to take care of each other. Yes, like I said, we've heard before, they've come from all over the place, they've given up jobs and homes and come, and they're all staying in Jerusalem, and there's a specific need. I get that. But there's a need. And who does it fall on to take care of that need? The church. One of the things that we see about Jesus, one of the things that we see pretty often from Jesus, is before he taught, he normally did something. There was something he did to help. There's something he did to serve, to meet needs that was connected. And I mean, obviously, I think that was very intentional. Jesus would heal somebody or help somebody in a certain way, and the people would react, and he'd then teach something based on that. It's a pretty good pattern. I mean, there's something there that we can take from that. Sometimes people leave the church because they feel like they're alone in their struggle. Sometimes people feel like nobody's helping them with their whatever it may be, whether it's money problems, whether it's personal issues, whatever it may be. And when that's the case, people just say, you know, there's no benefit here for me. And like I said, there's more to discuss there, and I understand that because we don't want to be taken advantage of, and we understand that. But listen, here's the fact. God didn't put in place government programs to take care of Christians. He put the church in place to take care of Christians. Yeah, that was recorded, so I can't get out of that now. But that's the truth. That is the absolute truth. And we have to be aware of that. We have to be conscientious and conscious of that. We might have ministries in place, but if it doesn't feel personal, if it just feels bureaucratic or corporate, that isn't going to resonate with people. Galatians chapter 6, verse 10, as we have the opportunity, let us work for the good of all. Everybody sees the word all right there, especially for those who belong to the household of faith. That's where we have to start. But especially doesn't mean exclusively. So we have to take care of each other just as much as we take care of the people out there. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. 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 Ed said it's a beautiful verse, and I said, like I wrote it. That's I obviously got that from somewhere else. But I mean, this is the essence of, from some people's perspective. You know, we did that during the giveaway in March, April, March, I guess. We did this survey that we just handed out to people. And I think I told you, I kind of thought we'd get 10, 15 of them. We got 61 people filled out these surveys. And I put the answers that people gave. I had like 5 questions. The answers, one of the questions was, what do you think the church should be doing for the community? Now, we're at a giveaway where what we're doing is giving our community whatever we have. But far and away, the number one answer was taking care of people. Now, listen, I understand we have some pushback with that, and maybe I should say I do, because I'm here at the building, me and Richard and Lori and Jared, we're here, and we get some benevolence calls. People show up at the building or they call, and you know for a fact that they're playing the system. I mean, Richard has had, we've had the same person. Some person will call and say, yeah, I've got this real problem. I need help with this or that. And you say, well, okay, let me see what I can do. Can I get your number? I'll call you back. And like 3 minutes later, the same person calls and goes, yeah, I can't get any help. It's like, you just called here, and they hang up. Because they're going through and just calling everybody to see what they can get. Or we've had a situation where people show up for our food pantry or something, and it's like you can see the car in the parking lot that was just here the day before, and it's just a different person coming to. So I understand that there's some cynicism in that, and that's part of our culture. And maybe that's me telling you more about myself than I should have just then, but that still says what it says. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you, there's been several times where you know what's happening, but you just go, you know what? God told me this, so I'll go fill up their gas tank, or I'll do whatever. And what they do with it is up to them. I'm still doing this, right? I'm still doing my job. So the person across the street who sees this person come in and walk out with a bag of groceries goes, hey, look what they're doing over there. Like the guy a couple of Saturdays ago that came over while we were washing cars, and we weren't changing the oil, but we were washing the cars. Guy comes from across the street and tells our car washers, says, hey, can I get my car washed? And they're like, we're doing it for our single moms and we don't. He was kind of just joking anyway, but he gave him $10 because he goes, I want to be a part of this. And that's somebody right there. That's what this is about. That's that Matthew 5:16, let your light so shine so that people see your good works. They want to know why you're doing what you're doing. Okay, I just totally went off my notes completely. But we have to think of all of these things, not just from the, and again, this is hard for me, not from the, okay, how do we do the benevolence reaction? We fill out the form, we go through, check the boxes, and we have to be relational. We have to be wondering why. Again, let's go back to our lost sheep. If brother so and so has an issue and comes asking for help, it isn't just, all right, here's how much exactly do you need, blah blah blah. It's what can we do to help? How do we keep you from doing this again? How do we help this situation? Because it's got to be relational with us. Because, and again, there's some shared responsibility in this, I understand. But when the person leaves because they don't feel helped, they don't feel cared for, this is from these guys' book. Some quotes from people going to people who are missing and say, hey, we really miss you. Person's reactions, why'd you take 6 months to come check on me? Give us another chance. The reaction is, chance at what? And then you go with this, well, you really ought to be here. The response was, what for? Well, and we know there's an answer to that beyond just, you need to be here. We need you here. The response was, you never needed me before. What's changed? Hebrews 10:25 says, there's the door slam right there. People need to know that we care about them. People need to know that we want a relationship with them. And then we have to remember the second part, or the whatever part of this, is we're going to make those efforts. And their response is not our responsibility. Sort of. But let's go with that. How they react is not our responsibility. Look at chapter 10, back in Matthew 10, verse 11 through 15. Wow. Jesus says, okay, he keeps going. When you enter any town or village, find out who is worthy and stay there until you leave. Greet a household when you enter it, and if the household is worthy, let your peace be on it. But if it's unworthy, let your peace return to you. If anyone does not welcome you or listen to your words, shake the dust off your feet when you leave that town. Truly, I tell you, it would be more tolerable on the day of judgment for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah than for that town. Now, let's think about this, what Jesus is saying here. When he says they're not worthy, he's not talking about their quality of human, okay? Because that would contradict so many other things Jesus has said. I just want to clarify this. What does he mean when he says they're not worthy? Well, that's a good question then. They don't want to listen. If you go into a household and they seem receptive or responsive, I just about merged those two words. If they seem like they're going to listen, stay there. But if you walk in and you get the vibe and you get the reaction of the people that they're not going to listen, he says, don't waste your time. Now, that doesn't mean we're unloving. That doesn't mean that, Jesus isn't telling them that, that these people are not worthy humans. He's saying they've decided for themselves that they're not going to listen. The fact is, we're going to reach out to our missing brothers and sisters sometime, and we're going to do all we can, and we're going to do it the right way, and they're still going to walk away. And that's just a fact. We've experienced that. Probably every one of us could think of somebody right now in your head who you did the right thing. You tried. You were loving and appreciative and tried to help their family or whatever, and they still chose to walk away. Jesus says, it's the way it goes sometimes.
I wish God was enough for us.
Yeah.
Or why is God not enough for us? That there are brethren probably that are alone and don't have brethren, and God is enough for them to study and trust and I know God says all these things about helping one another, but sometimes when I hear this, it's like, why aren't they going and trusting God that we sometimes want to bank on other people and I don't mean to be heartless or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's almost like a separation.
Okay.
I understand that. Why, and I don't mean to be harsh or anything, but I look at that my own family, my own kids. Like, why do you need other people? Why don't you see God in this relationship?
Okay, the question is, why isn't God enough for some people? And I'm going to answer that. I'm not going to say your name so the people recording won't know who this was because I don't want to be mean. But that's a mature Christian saying that. That's a mature Christian's perspective. I don't need you people. And I know you don't mean that. Sometimes we mean it like that. No. I don't need you to make me be faithful. I don't need other people to bolster my faith in God. But that's a mature perspective. Most people don't feel that way because we need community. Or Jesus wouldn't have said, Hebrews 10:25, assemble together, because you need each other. And we need to be reminded of that. Yes, we cannot be dependent on other people because that is, and again, maybe that's a maturity thing, maybe whatever. But when that becomes that's our excuse. Well, John Mendiola, he was my friend, and he told me my shirt looked bad one time, and I'm done with that place. Mendiola. Yes.
Parables that you quoted, the parable of the sower.
Yeah.
It gives that same idea of what to kind of answer her question.
Right.
Some people react differently, and then one of the things like the thorns of this world, the riches, the cares, and the pleasures of this world get caught. And generally, when we're talking about these people, that's what we find. Mm-hmm. But at the end, there are those, as you talk about, that are fruitful and mature. But there's a large number of people who never do. And when you go to them, you got to understand this. They're telling you the church is their problem, but their problem is their reaction to the word.
Right. Yeah, and you know, you think about that too. Another plant analogy. I'm trying to grow vegetables, and we've been working on trying to have a garden for the last 2 or 3 years. There are some plants that need other plants to grow. I mean, the plants have got to germinate each other. So, I mean, even scattering seeds, sometimes those seeds are going to need other plants to help them through. That's a bad analogy, but I thought that sounded really cool. But so we have to understand some people are just going to reject it. And we know, and Jesus will say elsewhere, that it's not us they're rejecting. And that's kind of what you were saying. It's not the church they're rejecting, and maybe it is, but ultimately it's Jesus they're rejecting. And what we have to remember is that person still needs us to be reaching out to them. Maybe they're going to slap that hand when we reach out to them. And if that's the case, that's what Jesus says. You got to be discerning. You got to go, okay, I need to take my attention elsewhere. That's a hard decision too. But the flip side of this, from these guys' books, it's the book's called Great Commission Part 2, and it's the Steve Cummings and Glenn Newton. The whole focus is on that second part, and it's not a 2-part series. It's the second part is teaching people to observe all that I've commanded you. How do we do that? And they're talking about these people that have left. Here's some answers from people who came back. What was it that brought you back? It wasn't Hebrews 10:25. It was love and concern shown by an individual. It was a phone call from a friend that lasted for 3 hours. I was constantly reminded the church meant well and wanted the best for me. A loving brother who genuinely showed care for me. Every time I saw someone from the church when I'd been away for a long time, they still acted like Jesus. There's our answers right there. There's what we have to do. Okay, so really fast. Romans 15:4 tells us that these things were written before time for our learning so that we might have hope. We have examples in Scripture of doing just this. I mean, that's what Jesus said. Go to the lost sheep. People sometimes get hopeless. Where they feel like, I can't fit in this congregation. There's no place for me. Nobody likes me. Nobody talks to me. And people feel hopeless. We have to meet people where they are in that case. In John chapter 20, this other statement Jesus makes. These women, and Mary is what John records, Matthew records other women too. But they come to the tomb, Jesus isn't there, the angels say he's gone. Then Mary, in John chapter 20, she encounters Jesus. And she clings to him. And Jesus said, don't cling to me now because I still have things to do. But what does he tell her to do? Go to my brothers. Go to those apostles. Because what does Jesus know about them right now? They're miserable. The focus of their life for the last several months to years is gone. Jesus is dead. And they're hopeless. They're in a locked room, just kind of waiting it out. And Mary goes to him and she tells them he's alive again. These are some books that are sad that they exist. Bring Him Back Alive, a healing plan for those wounded by the church. Why do Christians shoot their wounded? Re-church, healing your way back to the people of God. When bad Christians happen to good people. I don't know these authors. I don't know these books. These are just titles that I wish didn't even exist. Because, I don't know who this guy, Dave Burchett, he's got a couple of books there. But that tells us something. It tells us we have to be aware that we've got to go tell people that Jesus loves them. We've got to go tell people that there's a place for them among us. We have to go tell those who are missing here. And it isn't, hey, come back because Hebrews 10:25. That applies and we know it. And it's not come back because we need your attendance, we need your contribution. It's not that. We need to be telling them we're just pointing you to Jesus. Because that's what you're missing. And that's the only thing that's going to get people back. Because that's the only thing that got them here in the first place. We've been through those outreach campaigns where you give people, you help people with their physical needs and they show up and they're here for a little while. And then they disconnect. Well, we never connected them to Jesus, maybe. Maybe that's what, because that's what we have to do is it's not pointing people to our church or to our church programs or how great and how wonderful we are. This is a place that we connect with Jesus too. And that's what we have to remind people. Sometimes people just drift away. That's Hebrews chapter 2, verse 1. For those who believe that the once saved, always saved, Hebrews chapter 2, verse 1 straight up says, people drift away. And it shows some lack of intentionality, the idea of drifting. Most people don't just show up consistently week after week and then just go, you know what, I quit. I'm just not doing this anymore. That happens, and that's usually the hurt feelings. But most people just kind of drift away. They're not here for a week or two. Then they're not here for 2 or 3 weeks. Then they're not here for a month. And they just drift away. We have to be conscientious about that and help people find their hope again. That's what Jesus sent Mary to do. Go let these guys know there's still hope, that they're not disconnected from Jesus, that he's still there. For us, yeah, it's a different idea, but the same thing is true that we sometimes need to go to our lost sheep and tell them there's still hope. We need to go to these people and say, listen, we're not mad at you. Nobody's going to look down on you. And then we have to be those who don't do that. When somebody comes back for the first time in a long time, it can't be, well, look who it is. Well, the roof didn't fall down. Oh, I hate hearing that stuff. We have to remember those are people who should be, that God wants here, that Jesus wants here. And our job is just to point them to Jesus from wherever they are, however we need to do that. Any thoughts?
Yeah, we got it.
Yes.
I always have a policy. Tell them my congregation, please love people.
Right.
The only way we'll ever get them there.
Yep. Love.
When they leave, love them back into the church.
Yeah. Love people into the church. Love them back into the church. Love them while they're in the church.
Well, we're making disciples, so help people find the value that their gifts are. Help them find their
Yeah.
gifts, so they don't think, what is the church going to do for me?
Yeah.
They could be a part of the ones giving.
Provide some training so they know what I can do for the church. Right. Okay. We'll pick up next week.